Warning, this podcast contains discussions of sensitive topics that some listeners may find triggering. Listener discretion is advised.
Jazzcast Pros.
I'm excited to introduce a truly inspiring guest. Having experienced trauma in childhood and struggled with suicidal ideation, our guest has turned her pain into a powerful purpose. Now an accomplished author and coach, she is widely known as the Liberated Healer. Through her work, she brings hope and healing to countless individuals, showing that it is possible to overcome even in the darkest times. Welcome to Fearless Fridays with Maryann, the podcast to help you get unstuck, heal your inner child, and reshape your future. I am your host, Maryann Rivera-Dannert, and with over 10 years of experience as a coach, author, speaker, and owner of MRD Empowerment Solutions, I use my personal life experience with trauma, healing, and rediscovery as a catalyst for personal growth. My mission is to empower you to discover and unlock your full potential, paving the way to a life marked by freedom and balance. Together, we'll tackle the tough stuff and find the strength within to rise above. So without further ado, let's bring our guest in and get started.
Hello, it's Gina Cavalier. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Gina.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity having me on and anybody who's listening, connecting to this story. My name is Gina Cavalier. I have a company called the Liberated Healer. I was in entertainment for 25 years and my life wasn't working. I'd been actually on and off of suicidal ideation since I was a child, trying to work through trauma, and now going through the trauma of working in the entertainment business. It was very rough, and I just never really found my footing and never felt like I belonged anywhere. I also had chronic fatigue syndrome that I was struggling with. I had one attempt when I was in about my 20s, and it would usually come when I'd have like a catastrophic life event, and whatever that record that would play in my head that I was worthless and that I didn't deserve love or whatever was happening, it would get kind of serious. And it was something I never told people about. I was a high functioning media executive. So nobody ever, and I'm very funny and like outgoing. So nobody really could imagine that was my life at home. And I just got sick of it. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of living this way. There's got to be another way. And I dedicated myself to creating a new path. And I did. And I can say that I am I've healed it 100% to the part where I can't even talk negatively about myself. And I want to share my story because I want people to know that they can completely, when they decide and whatever their path is, really close that off and have another life. And anytime they do it, doesn't matter if you're in your 80s or if you're in your 20s, you can do it right now. You can start the path at least.
Yeah. So what was it that was going on that you realized that something was off, that something wasn't working right, and that something had to change?
Well, I think a lot of people can resonate with this. It just always felt like I was pushing up a boulder up a mountain. I was putting all my love and effort, and I thought, I'm really a giving person. I'm kind. I'm trying to live authentically from my heart and live on with my heart on my sleeve. But everything just felt like I was all the time, no matter what it was, just a boulder going up that hill, whether it was in love or at work or with friendships. And then, something would break either at the job or, something would switch it up. I would just take it super personally. And plus, I would give so much of my love and attention and energy to everybody because I didn't want to be abandoned. I didn't want to lose more people. And so that's always a vulnerable place to be in because people are sometimes they're supposed to leave your life or they are going to leave your life. And that's going to happen. So if you're constantly on the edge because somebody might be leaving, that's not a strong place to live. And I lived there for a really long time. And I found out that I didn't really love myself. I loved everyone else. But the way I spoke to myself in my head, anybody would have been suicidal, and and now that I'm talking about this to a lot of people, they feel like they do that too, that they're like, yeah, I really am mean to myself. I compare myself to other people. I'm judgmental of myself. I'm critical, and I go to bed and I just go through this cycle again. So we can break that. And the cool thing about it, and I always like to use the mountain analogy because that's what it felt like for me.
Yeah.
Once I really started falling in love with myself, finding healing practices that worked for me, created my path, it just felt like the path just started to open up more effortlessly. So, and I can't really explain it until you've been through it, but it is a very spiritual thing. It's a very awakening thing, or it's just it happens though. All of a sudden, when you look up that mountain, the path, because it just gets clearer. You're like, oh, that path just seems like the least resistance. And even when you have issues that come, which they always do, because we're in a world full of conflict, you move through it differently. You understand that, okay, I got to deal with this. It's uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable. Okay, what can we do? And you slow down. You listen to people better. You can take pauses. And then all of a sudden that boulder up the mountain just starts to fade away and you start to be able to walk up that mountain. And then when you get to the top, you just run down the hill. It's so much easier. And that's what happens when you get clear of the hurtful messages in your own mind.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. So you mentioned about fear of losing someone. So was there someone pivotal in your life that you lost that started some of these, negative thought patterns in your head?
I actually have a book coming out June 26th with the Swedenborg Foundation. I co-authored it with Dr. Amelia Kelly. She's a trauma-informed therapist. I had an abusive childhood. My father was very abusive and all kinds of, he wound up being married 11 times. He was just this guy who was a binge drinker, and I was left with him. It was just very scary and abusive. And I've been on my own since I was about 14 with really no familial support. So yes, I had a very traumatic existence. And we did write my memoir start in the book partially because I wanted people to see about the trauma and be able to connect with my story. But what happens is more of the same just keeps being repeated. Like my first husband was very similar to my father because I could identify the emotions, you know what I mean? And so what happens is if you don't really look at your core wounding and where you can make improvements, you're going to attract the exact same people and the exact same things. And I kept repeating the patterns, the same friends that would take all my energy, and I'd be at their house, packing their boxes, even cleaning their houses. I was like an overly friend because I was afraid to lose them. But then when I needed something, they were just gone, and it makes you feel worthless. And then you go back to, well, I guess I don't deserve it. I guess I'm not going to have, you look at other people's life, you compare yourself and you look at other people's life and you just feel like, I guess that's not meant for me. I don't belong here. And that's sort of where this, when you start to say, I don't belong here, then there's nowhere to really go from there. It's a deep rabbit hole that's scary.
Yeah. And that's so true because so many of us walk around with unhealed trauma. And we don't realize it. And we just keep repeating the same cycle. And the thing about it is that oftentimes people will say to themselves, well, I can't find love or I can't find friends that, are true and generous and things like that. But it's because of that unhealed trauma that hasn't been identified and healed.
Absolutely. I lost a lot of people. I consider I hate to even say the word lost. I'm going to kind of try to reframe that because we had moments and we loved each other at the time, but the relationship was no longer working for me. And because I learned how to have boundaries. And when you start off a relationship with no boundaries and then you try to put them in place, it's really hard to recover that relationship. And then really when you get to a very healed state, for me, it was two things. It was falling in love with myself. I'm ridiculously in love with myself right now. And I'm single. It's been about a year. And I'm just sort of like, oh my God, my partner is going to have to be so fantastic. Be able to be with I can't wait to actually have my next relationship at this healed state that I think will be a much more of a balance. And the second thing for me was finding my life purpose. I'm in service now to humanity. And so every waking moment, I just fling out of bed in the morning. I work tirelessly, often with no pay. And I don't even think about the money. And then opportunities just come. And I had one of the worst years last year. I had a breakup. I got all my things stolen, including my money. Like, it was a really tough year. I had nowhere to live. I was actually lived in a trailer for 6 months. I mean, like, not my normal lifestyle with my 2 dogs, and I got a book deal. And I said, okay, I started writing my book, and I illustrated it too in a tiny trailer. And now I'm speaking to hundreds and thousands of people in a speaking tour. I got a documentary that I'm working on about surviving suicidal ideation. I'm starting a nonprofit called Suicidal Ideation Anonymous. And I found my perfect place by the beach to live. The community loves me when I walk down the street. Everybody, I've attracted now my tribe and my dreams. It's interesting that when everything was shattering, that is actually everything, my dreams were happening at the same time. And it really feels very magical because it is a spiritual awakening when it clicks. I just want people to know that you work and it's hard, and then you fall down, you get up, you have a good day, you have a bad day. You meet another person or a healer or a teacher or a coach that gets you through to the next part. And then you have to find someone else that speaks. It is a thing. You have to keep juxtaposing constantly. But there's a click that happens. And I'm getting chills right now. There's a click. I want people to remember it. And it does change. And all of a sudden, it becomes so bright and sunny. And you start to see everything with different eyes. And you fall in love with everything around you. It could be a flower. It could be just a cloud. Like, I stop now constantly if I see birds flying over and just watch their formation. I don't remember ever doing that before.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So for the individual that might be listening or watching that feels that they don't love themselves, like something is wrong, something is off, what are 1 or 2 quick tips that you can offer to them that they can immediately start taking action on?
You have to look at your skill set and what you like, because you're with yourself 24/7 and nobody else is. So you really have to say, hey, I like to write, or I like to listen to music, or you really have to, like, be your own best friend. And really, I always say, like, act like you going to the Olympics for yourself. And, what would, a trainer who's like, I'm on this right now. Oh, you know what? I resonate with massages. I resonate with calming music. What do I need? Do I need a therapist? Do I need somebody to talk to? And you really have to make your choice, but you have to make a choice. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Go to the next one. And the barometer is, and I use this word a lot, excitement. What excites you? We all have things we have to do that's not super exciting all the time. But when you have some times to decide, you know what, I have a couple hours tonight. What am I going to do? Do what is your most excited, that excites you the most, that's going to fulfill your soul. And I say that with, like, maybe break it up. Don't go right to the television and turn on the TV. Right. Take another step and go, what can I do tonight that's really healthy for me? A walk around the block. If you used to be a musician and you stopped playing music, connecting to your spirit, and try to also be very conscious and listen to your own thoughts. And as soon as this negative talks, if you're like, you're ugly, you're unworthy, you're not pretty enough, you're overweight, or whatever it is, stop it. That's what I did. I literally had to create almost another version of myself and say, you're not going to talk to yourself like that today. Yeah. Okay. And then I would kind of go off, and then I'm walking, and then the thought comes back. How come, you can't find that perfect partner just like everyone else or whatever? And it's like, no. And what happens is, the first time you realize, oh my gosh, I do it a lot. Yeah. But what happens is with that awareness, it just comes less and less and less. And then when just not talking negative about yourself means you're falling in love with yourself.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And the thing about it too is that our thoughts are very powerful. Our words are very powerful. And sometimes people are always speaking things into existence and they don't realize that.
Oh, because I also am an energy healer, right? So I see everything as energy.
Mm-hmm.
You create your existence, actually, and you don't realize you're like, I created that. And you kind of go, you brought it in for a reason. Yeah. And then when you can look at it objectively and say, well, what was that reason? Why did I accept that behavior? Someone talking to me like that and then to finally get tired of being talked to like that. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it anymore.
Right.
Now I can sit in my seniority and not have people say horrible things to me. I mean, now when they do it, I worked in the entertainment business where people would yell, your bosses yell at you, and I'm sure it was cruel at times. And now I just have a baseline. Even very successful people have recently tried to scream at me for something. I said, I gotta go. I'm sorry. You can call me when you're feeling better. You can get there. And that's really important. It's part of the self-love as well.
Earlier, you mentioned boundaries. How does one go about setting boundaries, especially for someone that has never set those boundaries before?
It's hard because, like I said, I came from a traumatic childhood, and we're not taught boundaries at all.
Right.
And you know what? I got taught boundary I worked for a lady named Diane Ladd. She was a famous actress. Her daughter is Laura Dern, right? And I was in my 20s and I was her assistant. And we were I was co-writing and helping her with her biography. And so we traveled a lot together. And she had this, and I know it's a small thing, but it's beginning. She had this chapstick in the car. And I just grabbed it and took it and used it and was just sitting there. I'm in my 20s, just innocently. She goes, "Excuse me, that's mine." And she's like, that's my boundary. That's mine. You don't use somebody else's. And I went, and she said the word boundary. And then I went, oh, what's that? And so I realized I didn't have any boundaries, and that word, and people know about them more today, but they are so important. If you don't have, you have to just really, it's very hard for people with traumatic background. It's something that you have to work on really, because you just want them, especially when you just want to love somebody and you just want them to come over, but you know that they're going to talk mean to you or they're going to make you feel crappy when they leave. It's hard, but you have to choose yourself constantly and know what's healthy for you, For example, drinking, in our society, we're pushed constantly that alcohol is good for us and that it's a social thing. It's going to make you fun. We have all these commercials and all this stuff like that. If you're not going to feel good the next day and you're going to get depressed, that that's not good for you. You need to have a boundary where you go with your friends and you say, I'm going to have a mocktail tonight, or, you have to create those. And I've really started to create them, and it's kind of fun. When you start to do them, you're like, oh my gosh, that worked. Oh, be like, oh my God, they didn't just run away from me.
Yeah.
Because it's such a fear that they're just going to go, well, screw you, and leave.
Right.
You kind of can hop around and go, oh my God, I did it. And with everything else, like practice, you start to get really good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So earlier you mentioned about having chronic fatigue. What were some of the symptoms that you were, exhibiting that led you to seek, diagnosis or, seek out what's wrong, and how did that come about?
So I had 2 tubal pregnancies that had been in there for a really long time, and they ruptured, and I had to go to the emergency room. They found out, I had my whole female area was completely destroyed, and I'm only 19 years old.
Wow.
So they gave me IV antibiotics for 7 months, where I had to carry I had IV in my hand that I had to walk around with, just so I can get the infection out of my body, so I could have the surgery to get the babies out. Wow. So all that repetitive use of antibiotics and anxiety and everything, I did get Epstein-Barr chronic fatigue syndrome. It's completely debilitating. I'm a very active person, and I'm basically a workaholic, and I could not, you just feel like your whole body is lead. Mm-hmm. You can't get up. You have night sweats. You have brain fog, the fatiguing in the body just feels so heavy. It's like having a little bit of the flu too. I had it for about 15 years, and I what I did is I just went on a really hardcore detox that they give for cancer patients, but it's all natural with tinctures and bowel cleansing stuff. And it really was just the antibiotics, because what happens is it got into my tissues and I needed to really get it cleansed out through the bowel cleansing and the detoxing. And I just slowly started, I would, do a little bit of exercise here and there. I did a lot of juices. I stayed away from heavy processed food, no processed foods, but like eating a lot of meat, where your body you have to like become best friends with your body too. Yeah. This is a temple. Like I'm not talking about what it looks like. I'm talking about like every one of these cells is marching for you. Your heart never gives up. Your organ. And when we do meditations, I go in there and I put all this energy into my organs. I say, thank you for they're just sitting there like marching and helping us. Right. And so eating things that are going to, not be hard, if you're sick, don't go eat a steak. It's so much energy for your body to break that down and things like that. So just being smart. But what happens is people are programmed by what they were fed when they were kids, what they like, they get programmed into these cycles. Right. And they don't even realize that they're making it hard for their mind and their body to come out of cycles.
So tell us a little bit about how did the Liberated Healer come about?
Well, I started my healing journey for about 15 years ago. And it was, obviously slow. I studied Kabbalism, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. I went to different healers. I found a class that taught energy. And that's where I really found out that I'm clairvoyant and I see energy. I can see people's energy. And that saved my life, because I learned how to ground. I learned how to be quiet and actually meditate, move my Kundalini energy and understand I had energy centers in my body. And so I worked with shamans, and then I just felt so good. I was like, okay, I made it. I'm super excited. I'm sitting in bed one night and all of a sudden I take this CBD to try to sleep. And I guess I took too much because I'm very sensitive, and I kind of felt stoned. And I was like, I didn't think you can get stoned with the CBD. I don't understand. And all of a sudden I look up, I'm just like, huh? And this light, my room got real bright, like this whole room filled with light. And this like voice or energy said, you're going to start a whole new company. You need to become a teacher now. And I was like, what? Me, a teacher? I was like, that's a big responsibility. And they said, no, this is your path. And that's why I like to share with people, like, it just clicks one day. So if you start falling in love and doing the work, the life path will come. Because a lot of people feel that their life path hasn't happened, or their life hasn't happened, or they can't find what they love. And this didn't happen until I was 50 years old, by the way. So I'm 54 now. I just turned 54 like a week ago. Yeah.
You look like you're in your 20s.
Thank you. And I look almost 100% better than I did in my 20s because of the energy work. Because I was an empath, which a lot of people are, and I would soak up the environment around me, and I would try to heal everybody, and I would get sick. And that's another reason why I think I got chronic fatigue. But if you look at pictures of me in my 20s, I look younger, but I look sick. You can see that. And it wasn't that I was doing anything different, that I wasn't doing energy work, and I wasn't spiritual. I wasn't connected to my higher self. I wasn't doing any spiritual work. I thought I was just like, I'm just a sweet girl. Like, I didn't understand that there was any kind of higher energy, but it just came down. It gave me that night. I got the name, The Liberated Healer. I did the business plan. I did the website. I did everything all in one night. Wow. And I just sent out email meditation classes starting Monday. It was just like that. Boom. And it's changed my life. It's been almost 4 years. And what I was saying, those obstacles change, right? So I'm going down the path, and then I'm like, oh, well, this is the way to go. Oh, no, I don't really want to do that. This is the way to go. But you just start to travel up that mountain, and you're not carrying that boulder anymore. And also the thing that I'd like to highlight is we all have obstacles in our life. And I kind of look at them as energy, right? And they come into you. Are they going to take you down that day? Because sometimes a big obstacle, like say you lost your job. I mean, I'm talking about Could be little obstacles, like you got in trouble at work, or it could be you lost your job. There's always going to be conflict and there's always going to be obstacles, right? So we know that we have to figure out a way to make it easier on ourselves. You know, they're going to come. You're going to get in a fight with someone. You know, we just are. We're not going to agree with somebody. But when you can get calmer and also be in that good space about yourself and then reciprocate it to the people around you, you don't have to love them. You just have to have mutual respect for our humanity and try to deal with it with the least amount of conflict. You don't have to be right. You might be right. It doesn't matter all the time. We have this big problem that everybody's right all the time.
Right.
Not everybody's right all the time. And you might not be right all the time. And and it's sort of like we have to give up this righteousness a little bit, let people have their own opinions, cut out the civil war, online civil war, like all this stuff. Really, just humanity has created so many beautiful, wonderful things. We can achieve so much. We can do it, So we need to backtrack that again and start putting our foot down to negative comments online. Stop contributing to it. If somebody doesn't say something you like, move away.
Right.
You don't have to comment. You can be the stop gap for negativity. Yeah. And it's really going to help elevate our entire planet and everyone around you. Especially if you have children or, a family, you don't want to bring that into your household, because you do carry it. And everybody knows it when they go online and they're like, I can't believe you said that. And they just go right. And they think warrior. You still hold that energy, right? You still think about it. Right. And I can't believe he's tried to say, or she, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You do. You carry it.
And it keeps going because then you're acting out on the individuals that you live with and that are around you.
Mm-hmm. You might be 100% right, but who cares? Right. Not if you have to carry a negativity, something with you, and you're continuing the cycle actually.
Right.
And I think that's the thing I'd like to, to just see in general, especially as we go into an election year. How can we be kinder? Americans, especially, we are so privileged. And I just wake up every day and say, oh my gosh, I'm so lucky. Thank you, and not everybody gets to have this experience. And I'm going to really take it 100% today, as much as I can.
Love that. So you are on the Fearless Fridays podcast. How are you living a fearless life?
That's such a big question. I really feel like I am epitome of living a fearless life. I am very fearless. I'm the person that jumps into the river without even testing the waters. I really go with my intuition. Some people kind of lose sight that they have this incredible programming system that's going to tell them where to go and when not to go. Listen to your intuition. Your first thought is usually the right one, where there's go or don't go, jump in, don't jump in. To be fully whole at the end of time, you just have to live your life of what makes you the most excited, really, honestly. If you've chosen one way to make money, but you really wanted to be an artist, or you really make baby steps towards those things, and it's part of your calling, it's a part of your gift, and we're all like these shiny bulbs of energy and light and beauty, every single person. And we're so unique. And actually our soul is 100% unique than anyone else. And that's what I teach, especially to teenagers. So they know, trying to do the anti-suicide thing is trying to get everybody to realize just how absolutely gorgeous they are. I am not talking just the outside. I'm talking about just, etherically, and living that way is absolutely fearless. Again, when the obstacles come, you can go, what do I do? You don't go down the rabbit hole. It doesn't take you down and you spin out of control for days and days and days, which a lot of people are doing.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
What are you looking forward to in 2024?
Well, obviously my book coming out in June. And I've wanted to be a published author my whole life. And I was turned down by so many people. I wrote a lot of scripts, and I would send them to agents and they'd say, go do something else. And I literally had one agent tell me that, and I didn't write for 2 years.
Wow.
Because that one agent, I put so much weight in that person, but it was in my soul. And so then I would try again, but then that wheel would turn. Well, everybody says you're not good at it. And I did have to work really hard to get focused and learn how to be a better writer. It takes practice, but that doesn't mean I couldn't do it. And I also not a big fan of people saying you can't do that, and encouraging people. No, that's not for you. No, like that's their soul calling. Let them do it. But yes, my book coming out, I have 30 illustrated images in it. I did the cover. Thomas More, who's written 30 books, wrote the foreword for us. He wrote The Care of the Soul. He was on the New York Times for 46 weeks. And then I can't wait to meet people and share their energy with them and hear their stories and show them that you don't have to live a life with suicidal ideation. We don't know the numbers of suicidal ideation. We know what the numbers of suicide is for the most part. It's a lot. It's 132 people a day in America. Wow. So during this podcast, we've already lost 2 or 3 people. That's just America. And we don't even know how many people are actually suffering with ideation that don't want to be here, who feel completely disconnected. So I really want to eradicate suicide and suicidal thoughts. I know it's a huge talk about going big or going home, but
it starts with one person.
I really do. It can be eradicated. And I want those people to stay and see how beautiful their soul is and that they do have a life purpose.
Wow, that's beautiful. So where can individuals connect with you, support you, and buy the book when it comes out?
It's already on Amazon right now, pre-sale, or Barnes & Noble. So you can get it right now. It'll come out June 26th. It's going to be like a workbook. There'll be like a contract in there. There's meditations in there. And also, like I said earlier, there's there's advice from a therapist, and then also my story, and then also spiritual stuff. So it's a big kind of thing. But theliberatedhealer.com is my website. Everything is on there I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, really easy to find. You can just find The Liberated Healer. I also have a podcast. I have about 200 episodes out. I do one every week, usually on Mind, Body, Spirit. And I'm pretty easy to find. You just type in Gina Cavalier.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing a little bit of your story with us.
Thank you, Maryann, and for the opportunity and for inviting me into your space. And thank you for the coaching work that you're doing.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star review and share with a friend or two. If you're not already following us on social media, come join the Fearless community at MRD Empowerment Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or visit our website, MaryannRiveraDannert.com. I'll catch you next week with a new episode, and remember that you are a priority and you matter.